Hey everyone, CWD Music Reviews here. I am CWD, and this is going to be a music review of the new Lucinda Williams album, The Ghost of Highway 20. Lucinda Williams is a country musician, blues musician, Americana musician, whose career spans entire decades, and this is her latest full-length album. I caught on to Lucinda Williams around a few years ago when I checked out her breakout album back in the late 90s, Car Wheels on a Gravel Road. That album was really good. It was certainly something different for the world of country music, roots rock, blues rock, Americana. And from what I understand, she hasn't exactly been one of the major figures in country music and folk music for whatever reason, because she's got a very distinct sound about her, one that's like not really outlawish, but just, out there in terms of what mainstream country has been churning out over the course of 15 years or so. Now, honestly, I really didn't plan on listening to this new album until I learned that this is a double album. It's about 90 minutes long. So I thought, okay, I'll try it out, most certainly. And I was certainly pleased with what I heard. Quite a bit. Like I said, this album's a double album, consists of 2 discs, both of them 7 tracks, so this is a 14-track album. Each disc being about 45 minutes in length, but I could say that the first disc is my favorite. The album opens up with Dust, which is pretty much this really steady and patient, dusty roots rock song with like a country vibe to it. Pretty much being about being in this realm of sadness where even your thoughts, your sorrows, and everything is just nothing but dust. The next track is actually one of the couple of songs Lucinda Williams doesn't write. House of Earth is actually an adaptation from some words written by none other than Woody Guthrie about prostitution and sort of sexuality. It's got a really strong American postmodern poetry vibe to it. And I can't say that every song, all 2 of them, Lucinda Williams doesn't write, are my favorites, just to get this out of the way. The second disc has a Bruce Springsteen cover called Factory. It's not bad, it's just not really adding much to the album in terms of quality. Then we get the song I Know All About It, which has Lucinda in a somewhat sultry and simultaneously sinister way. She's talking about this woman who seems to be strung out on drugs, strung out on poverty, and how she knows all about it, and she's pretty much seen it all before, and she's like really, I guess, warning this woman that this is not a very good thing. This actually is one of the longer songs. There's quite a few songs of this length that are like this. Dust is like 5 minutes, and I Know All About It's like of the same length. I mean, both discs are at least 40 minutes long after all. What I liked about this is that it doesn't feel grating or patience testing at all. It's very rare you have like artists putting out 90-minute albums that don't feel like they're 90 minutes long. Or at least to me anyway. Place in My Heart is a song that has like this really stripped back, really ballad-like acoustic number, and I like it. It's got Lucinda sounding really tender in the lyricism, which I definitely like a lot. Then there's a song Death Came, which once again there's kind of a foreboding vibe as Lucinda's talking about these instances where death has arrived in order to take someone away. Doors of Heaven actually picks up in terms of tempo and dynamic as it like gets a little louder and a little more quicker, and it sounds like a kind of a roots rock song, maybe a little Grateful Dead or later Bob Dylan inspired, that I really enjoy. Even though Lucinda's vocals haven't aged all that well, I kind of like how she's refraining, "Open up the doors to heaven, let me in." This song doesn't sound more like a gospel hymn type thing. Maybe written in the same structure, since gospel is in this realm of Americana music that this album embraces so well. It's not like that. It's more like Lucinda saying, "Oh, I'm tired of this shit, let me die already." Louisiana Story, I think, is probably one of my least favorite tracks on the first disc, and that's because of the instrumental seems really laid back for its own good, but I still like the song, especially where she seems to be talking about growing up in Louisiana, and maybe this is autobiographical, or maybe it's not, I don't know, but this persona she's portraying, like, having like these really stern parents, but not really knowing that beforehand they had parents that were either worse or of the same quality. especially when she's talking about how religion played a part in these children's abuse. So that's intriguing. And then we get to the second disc, which opens up with The Ghost of Highway 20, the title track on this album. I'm not sure why this is like in the middle of the album, but I think this would have been a really cool opener, but still, it's a good track. Especially how lengthy it is and the way it builds over time. Lucinda's singing about knowing about all these things that went on the highway of where she grew up. And it kind of reminds me of like Highway 61 Revisited, how she seems to be writing all these songs related to the folklore of where she came from or a place that she's familiar with, so that's interesting. But I think my favorite track on the second disc is Bitter Memory, which takes kind of a oldish but modern rockabilly type of vibe. She seems to be singing about, obviously, just bitter memories and how they seem to plague her, and that's really cool. And then there's a series of like 3 tracks that they're not bad, they're just kind of, it creates kind of a lull in the track listing. Can't Close the Door to My Love, another endearing track, along with If My Love Could Kill, as well as If There's a Heaven. These instrumental palettes, kind of an acoustic ballad vibe, one of them more brighter than the others, but not exactly tracks that I point to say, yeah, fantastic tracks or standout tracks on the album. I think it's at this point why the second disc is my least favorite of the 2 discs. And then the closing track is a 14-minute long song, Faith and Grace. Not a lot she's saying about in the lyrics. It actually takes kind of a Doors' vibe when she's kind of just repeating words and just coming up with whatever it is that comes out of her dome, and I think that's interesting. Especially as she's like really singing over this jam that goes on that I really enjoy a lot. Maybe the jam could have been a bit more engaging, but still, it's a really climactic closer. So yeah, I enjoyed this album quite a bit. I think this is certainly Lucinda Williams' most interesting album in a little while. I will say that there's maybe a few relatively duds in the track listing, but even those tracks are good with the exception of Factory. But I can't say that they're adding on to my overall enjoyability of this album, which is fine because I enjoy this album a lot. I think it's a solid release. For Lucinda Williams to put out an album that's like over 90 minutes in length and to come out with more bullseyes than like misses, I'm pleased with that. Maybe these bullseyes could have been done a little better. Maybe the lyricism could have been worked on a little more, sound more intricate, but still, this is an enjoyable release that I will find myself returning to and seeing as a highlight for the year. This album is a solid +2 out of +3. Yeah, I enjoyed this album quite a bit. If you're into country music, if you're into roots rock, if you're into Americana music, folk rock, and all that stuff, do look this album up, certainly. You'll get quite a bit out of it. Well, so if you've given this album a listen, what did you think of it? Did you like this album? Did you dislike this album? What was your reasoning for that? And what should I consider reviewing next? This is CWD Music Reviews here, signing off.